So, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. This movie came out in 1987? I think 1987. And was directed by Frank Oz. Frank Oz, who most people know as the voice of Yoda himself.
May the force be with you.
And Miss Piggy. I promise I won't do another impression. So Frank Oz, many people, they're Star Wars fans, so they just know him as Yoda. Frank Oz is actually a really good director, and he doesn't get his due. So movies that are classics directed by Frank Oz, he did Bowfinger, Little Shop of Horrors. He did one of the Muppets movies. I think it was The Muppets in Manhattan.
Together again. Gee, it's good to be together again.
That was from the Manhattan one, I'm pretty sure. It was from one of the movies. I get them all mixed up at this point. But he also did Dark Crystal, big cult classic. And even up until 2007. In 2007, he directed Death at a Funeral, the British version. And that was a really good movie at the time. So Frank Oz is definitely an overlooked director just because of how great of a voice actor he is. But I'm going to talk about probably his best movie, in my opinion, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. So this movie follows Michael Caine and Steve Martin, two con artists. Michael Caine is this rich, elitist British man, while Steve Martin's this brash, American, touristy type. And they're both on the island where Michael Caine lives. And they figure there's not enough room for both of them to con women. So they come to the agreement, okay, we'll pick a woman, and first one to get $50,000 out of her gets to stay on the island. This movie is just fabulous. I was talking a couple of days ago about how Detective Pikachu failed at dynamics and conflicts in dynamics, and this is the total opposite. This succeeds really well at it. You got Michael Caine, who's a proper British gentleman, a bit of a snob. You got Steve Martin, who's this sleazy American touristy type. He's got like the shorts and the stupid fedora, and he dresses sloppy and he acts crass. And the two characters really hate each other. Michael Caine views Steve Martin as this gross sleazeball, while Steve Martin views Michael Caine as some pompous, stuck-up douchebag. And it works perfectly. It allows for some great comedic moments. Character dynamics aside, the jokes just land perfectly in this movie. What also really makes this comedy stand out from other comedies is the way the plot is always keeping you on your toes. You never know what's going to happen next. There's so many moments in this movie where you think Steve Martin has the upper hand, and then you hear from off-screen a little and the camera will pan over and there's Michael Caine, and you're like, oh shit, it's Michael Caine! There's a lot of moments like that. It constantly keeps you on your toes. I was so invested in this ridiculous plot. You don't really expect to go into a comedy being invested in a plot, but this movie works. I feel like so often comedies forget to pay attention to the plot and they rely heavily on jokes, which is fine if your movie is funny, but if your movie isn't funny, you're a little screwed there. So this movie, it's funny, the plot works, the character works. There are parts that in other movies would be low-hanging fruit, but in this movie it works because of that plot. So there's some physical humor. And usually whenever there's physical humor in a movie, I think of like Adam Sandler movies. I'm like, okay, character gets injured. They react like, ouch, I made a boo-boo. And you're like, okay, there's the joke. But here it actually works. So like Steve Martin's pretending to be numb from the waist down, and Michael Caine pretends to be a doctor, and he's whipping his legs with the stick to see if Steve Martin reacts. And Steve Martin is trying so hard, he's biting his lip and he's tearing up. And it works in this movie while it wouldn't work in any other slapstick context. And I get it, humor is subjective. What I find funny, other people might not find funny, which is fine. But even to someone who doesn't find this movie funny, I think there's enough there to enjoy, just on a plot level. The way the plot always keeps you on your toes, that also applies to the ending. The ending, the first time I watched it, I didn't see this coming. So at the end, you find out that the girl that they're scamming this whole time is actually scamming them. And that works well with what the movie is trying to say. When you're first introduced to Michael Caine's character, Michael Caine says, oh, women are constantly ripping off guys, marrying them just for their money, scamming guys, so it's my turn to scam women. So that's Michael Caine's philosophy going in. At the end of the movie, when he finds out the woman scammed him, it just creates a character arc that you wouldn't expect. And it's a much needed karma for this like really dickish character. And he accepts it and he takes it like a man too, which I gotta respect. He still is a sleazeball, but whatever. So the movie is funny, characters are great, plot is great, twist ending is great. Really hard to find criticisms in this movie. If I had to give one, I think the ending has a stinger, and I don't think I was a fan of the stinger, and I don't know if the movie was like trying to set up a sequel or something like that, but it basically ends, the woman flies away, and she leaves with the $50,000, and Michael Caine realizes he got scammed, and that to me was a perfect ending. But then it goes on 15 minutes longer and something else happens and the girl like says, hey, let's make a team. I felt that kind of came out of nowhere a bit more. If this girl is such a strong scammer, why would she even need Michael Caine or Steve Martin? It didn't fit. Probably the movie wanted to set something up in the future, but I don't know. It didn't really work for me. But other than that, this is a solid movie. It's got some great bits. Michael Caine's great in it. Steve Martin's great in it too. I feel like younger people who haven't been exposed much to Steve Martin don't realize he's really good at slapstick humor and really good at physical comedy, because the younger generation probably saw him in like Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, because that plays every Thanksgiving on cable. They probably saw him in stuff like Cheaper by the Dozen, which he plays the straight man in that movie, but he's a really good physical comedian. And my friend was talking to me about how much he loved Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and he had never seen this movie. So if you love Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, give this one a shot. You'll really enjoy it. Another movie this reminded me a lot of is A Fish Called Wanda, with John Cleese. The way the plot is constantly moving and constantly keeping you on your toes, it was really reminiscent of A Fish Called Wanda. So all in all, great movie. Frank Oz, underrated director. Great voice talent. I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10. Great movie. I don't know if they made a remake or they're going to make a remake of it with women. I think it's like Anne Hathaway or something. I have no intention in watching it. Could be good, could not be good. I'm more selective with recent movies I'm going to watch because there's so much content being thrown at me nowadays. I tend to be more selective. But yeah, Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, give it a shot. Let me know what you think in the comments and stuff like that. Make sure to like and subscribe and tell all your friends about the channel and stuff.